You know, I'm actually shocked that this universe isn't canceled already. Hi, my name is Nathan, and I talk about a bunch of movies on this channel. If you're new here, down below in the comment section, share what you thought if you had the courage to go see Madam Web. Click the like button and be sure to subscribe because that would really help. And over on my channel, I have more content like this. Check those out once this video is over. With that said, let's not waste any more time and talk about the good. And literally the best thing I can say about this movie, and I'm being absolutely serious when I say this, is that this movie is not the incoherent train wreck that is Morbius. Morbius is one of the few movies that I'd probably give an F rating, and it's just slightly better than that. It's not good, but it's not as bad as Morbius. I think it did have a beginning, middle, and end, unlike Morbius, which was just an incoherent, jumbled train wreck. From there, let's move on to the bad. And what do you know? It did not take Madam Web's powers but to see the future in order for us normal people to see the future on how horrible that this movie was actually going to be. This is not a good movie at all. And so there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the bad. And so first one up here, the actors just don't put any effort into their performances. It's like they didn't even want to be on set. It's like they knew they weren't making a movie that anybody was hyped about. So they just decided to just play it out like that. And play in this serious same voice thing. It's the same tone. They show no emotion. They don't do anything with their characters. They're not interesting in the role. They're not entertaining in the role. They're not watchable in the role. They're just kind of there. Like Dakota Johnson and especially like Ben Parker, they just show no emotions at all. They're the same person from the beginning of the film to the end of the film, and they show no emotion in their performances, and that brings no life to a movie like this. And the dialogue that the characters do deliver in their performances is sometimes very, very atrocious. Like, I don't know how somebody wrote this dialogue. Some of this dialogue about they're literally straight talking about radioactive spider venoms in scenes like that. It's just very weird. It's like, and there's a bunch of stuff about them diving into the past with her parents in the Amazon that you just don't care about. And some of the dialogue, especially at the beginning, and the sequence at the beginning is absolutely atrocious to me. That looked ridiculous, and it doesn't really explain anything. And even some of the ways, it can't even get the most basic things right. Like, the dialogue, maybe it's bad, but at least they're actually saying it. And sometimes, with characters like the one, the only, the almighty Ezekiel Sims, sometimes his mouth doesn't even move with what he's saying. Like, you will notice his mouth is not moving with what he's saying. Like, it can't even get the most basic of editing right. I don't know what he was actually saying, or if they had to voiceover change his lines to dialogue or something, but half the time his mouth is not moving with the stuff he is saying, which I could not believe that I was just watching that in the theater. Like his mouth is not, that's a basic editing thing, and they couldn't even do that. Likewise, in the trailers, they teased out a bunch of the suits that were going to be in the movie that are worn by the characters. And they do not appear in this movie. Really at all. They appear for less than 30 seconds of the film. And are shown as just visions. From Madam Web and from our villain, the one, the only, the almighty Ezekiel Sims. It's just visions of that. And it doesn't do anything interesting with that. It just teases out the fact that it could set up sequels. Which brings me to the next problem, in which case this movie feels so hard like it's trying to set up a sequel, trying to milk out something there that might catch your attention. And it fails at doing that. But it also, what's really cynical about this one is that it feels like it's trying to set up future movies to try to make more money rather than having a movie that actually tells a compelling story with compelling characters. No, it didn't do any of that. It sets up to tease stuff that they think the audience might enjoy, and especially from this universe, all of it doesn't work at all. The prime example of this is this movie makes our lead character, Madam Webb, it makes her friends with Ben Parker, and friends with Peter Parker's mom, Mary Parker, and she's pregnant in the movie. And she's set to give birth to Peter. And it sets up the fact that Peter could potentially be in this universe. But to any Marvel fan who doesn't really like this universe all that much, it's like, that's not very interesting, because it's set in this particular universe, and which I just don't understand this really set of movies here, where you take a Spider-Man villain and make them a hero without Spider-Man. And I don't know why Sony is doing this, but this is the trend they're doing, and now they're adding Spider-Man in. And I feel like they just had I feel like 90% of that is that they had nothing interesting with this movie. And so Spider-Man's where they make it set in 2003, like 20 years ago. And I'm 90% sure the only reason it is set in 2003 is to have Spider-Man be born in it to set up something. If it was set in the present day, it would make absolutely almost no difference whatsoever. And that's just what's so cynical about this movie, is that it's only there to set up future potential projects in the SSU that nobody cares about, and that looks like we're not getting a sequel to this movie either. The characters, the villain, are very uninteresting, and so when it comes to our lead character, Madam Webb herself, inherently, like, this is not a character I was familiar with or anything, but I just didn't find her interesting at all in this entire film. And that's because she's just not really an interesting character. Some of that goes down to the performance, some of that goes down to the way they handled her backstory. I don't know, whatever it was, it just wasn't interesting. Especially, like, our villain, Black Spider-Man suited guy that I call the one, the only, the almighty Ezekiel Sims. He is, like, he's a very delusional character, and they had to come up with such a stupid motivation to set him on foot. His villain plot in this film is that he's able to see visions, or dreams really, of these three girls in Spider-Man outfits murdering him. And he sees what are essentially dreams in there. And so, instead of explaining, trying to find out why he's having those dreams by seeing a therapist or something, he somehow, like, grabs screenshots of those events that haven't happened yet in his brain, enters them into a computer, and scans security cameras to find them. That's throughout the entire movie. He does that throughout the entire movie. And that's so contrived, so convoluted, and that also just makes the villain seem like a really bad character. Our teenagers, the three characters we have that tag along with Madam Webb throughout the entire movie, are like stereotypical, generic teenagers making stupid decisions, all that kind of stuff. And the entire plot of this film is also just tied around so many contrivances and coincidences. Like, literally, in one scene, after Madam Webb first rescues them, those three girls, the first thing she does is drive into the woods and leave them abandoned for hours and hours. And because they're teenagers, they misbehave, go somewhere else, and it's a scenario for the one, the only, the almighty Ezekiel Sims to track them down. It doesn't make any sense. No normal human being would do that. No adult will leave three teenagers behind in the woods unsupervised. But it does serve the plot. And so characters are making stupid decisions and all that kind of stuff. And the movie also just basically has no action. The final fight in this movie, I can't even consider that to be an action sequence. You literally get four people running around random directions in a building, dodging Michael Bay type explosions, and the villain, he doesn't die because the heroes kill him. He dies in a rather stupid way, which I'm not going to say that right here. I don't want to get too much into spoilers. That is, if you're one of the people that actually care about being spoiled about this movie, but yeah, there's basically no action. It's them on the run. They don't actually get to fight the villain. The villain just dies foolishly at the end. And so all this basic stuff that you're supposed to put in an action superhero movie, it just doesn't do any of that. So overall for me, this was not a good movie at all. It was not good from beginning to end on pretty much every single level. And the best thing I could say about this movie is that it was not the train wreck that was Morbius. But that's not to say that it was that good either. Overall, I give this one a D. Yet another Marvel disappointment. Like, I just don't understand what's happening with Marvel. Maybe not even Marvel. Sony, and why they are making these movies still. But there you have it. Those are my thoughts on Madam Web. Down below in the comment section, share what you thought of it. Over on my channel, I have more content like this. Check those out right now. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. And I will see you in the next one.